Born from the real-world needs of Resolve Marine, the Resolve Maritime Academy offers unmatched training for maritime or marine, firefighting, safety, and resource management. Our courses are taught by active professionals, providing hands-on experience that goes beyond industry standards. Whether you need STCW, USCG, or MCA certification, Resolve Academy will prepare you to mitigate emergencies, saving property and lives. Training as real as it gets, with real-world scenarios and live-action simulations. Push your limits, bring out your inner hero, and become an indispensable member of your team. Resolve Maritime Academy, where real-world training meets real-life expertise.
Good afternoon. Rick Thomas, Yachting USA podcast, produced by Yachting International Radio. I am here today with Joe Farrell of Mission Resolve Marine, and I am thrilled to have the opportunity to sit in his home and have a conversation about really what I like to talk about most, doing well for others. Joe, thanks for having us here today, and this is really cool to sit here and have this opportunity with you.
Well, thank you, Rick. Thank you for taking the time to do this.
Yeah,
Nice.
I've been looking forward to it for quite a while, and I think the last time we talked, I felt almost embarrassed. Gotten so far in my career, I never really got to know you. And then when I got to know you a little bit, realized we have some really interesting common ground. I mean, you got a little time on me, maybe. I started in the commercial diving industry, and you were a commercial diver and salvager and vet, and there's a lot of history. And I'd like to give you an opportunity to tell our guests, people listening, a little bit about your history, because it's fascinating, and I think it ties into Mission Resolve and what you're doing today.
Well, it certainly does, Rick, to be honest with you. I started off in the New England area, grew up in Boston, moved out of an inner city to the water when we were 12. That really changed my life, kind of an informative age. When you're 12, 13, 14, you really see a fire truck go by, hey, maybe I'll be a fireman. So we moved near the water, and I was like, wow, the ocean was pretty good, and got a job down there in a boat rental. And a lot of young kids got the opportunity to learn how to splice lines and fix boats and engines. And these guys had come up from New Jersey and had rent 40 or 50 boats where we worked at this boat rental, and it got me on the course. So it was about 6 or 8 years of that. Went in the military to go into UDT SEALs. I couldn't get in, had a deviated septum, but I went in the Coast Guard, and they had ended up going to Navy dive school anyways, became a diver on a Coast Guard icebreaker.
Wow. This in freezing water?
Yeah, cool. I mean, like, man. You have single holes. You don't use single holes in the Arctic because they freeze open. Yeah. So we'd use double hose regulators and doing convoy runs for the early warning system. Wow. So that was interesting. Then I said, you know what? I went and volunteered for Vietnam again and got in this time to became an explosive advisor. Spent a year in Vietnam, and went to a lot of schools for offloading ammunition ships in Saigon, Quy Nhon, in Vietnam. It was funny though. I got, we're going to the Coast Guard Foundation dinner thing tonight, right?
Yes, we'll be at the Foundation dinner tonight. This will be great.
I'm probably the only one that ever got a promotion in a captain's mast.
How does that happen? That usually goes the other way, doesn't it?
Oh, big time. Yeah, I got in trouble on an icebreaker up in Murmansk, Russia, on a south wind. I was a diver up there on the icebreaker, and the short version is I got in a situation there where the captain gave me a choice to go to Vietnam. If I went to Vietnam, I'd have to be promoted to be E6 to become an explosive advisor, or I could stay on the ship and become an E1 again. I already had the quals to become an E6.
I have to break in here, Joe. Am I clear in my security to ask the question, what the heck was this icebreaker doing up in Murmansk, Russia? That was
that was 40 years ago. Yeah, it was. Actually, we were up there picking up a Gemini space capsule that the Russians had picked up, and it was a goodwill tour. It was the first time an American ship had ever gone into Russia since World War II.
Since World War II, right.
Because that was where the convoys, we used to go up there, and a tremendous amount of ships. So they had a couple of ceremonies. We went into an Allied graveyard up there on May 1st, and it was quite a thing. So we got our space capsule back, and as it turned out, I had my hard hat on, my dive Coast Guard outfit there. It looked like I was a spaceman, so I went and talking to these guys at night in the club there with the KGB types. There's all my gear in the spacecraft, and then we all got a little toasted. Yeah. And so by the time I went back to the icebreaker, I had a little chip on my shoulder from a situation earlier when we were in Sweden on the ship. And the short story is I got promoted to go to Vietnam as an explosive advisor versus getting demoted to stay on the ship.
The best way the captain knew to get you off that ship then.
He was having a hard time accepting that.
I love that. These are the little things, because we look back on our life and try to figure out, well, how do we get here? And it's these little,
It is amazing,
the side tricks we take that take us someplace we never knew would take us someplace.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Especially when you're young and you don't think things through. All of a sudden you're, how did this happen?
You're young and you're mortal at that time.
Jeez.
That was my mindset going into commercial diving. I couldn't imagine a single thing to go wrong, but I could think of 1,000 things that'd be great.
Well, you were doing some serious diving too.
Yeah. Saturation diving and
diving. You guys
diving.
did some serious diving. I never did the sat diving. We do some now with our main company, but it was always really pretty cool, state of the art at the time you were involved. We all looked up to you guys.
And I imagine if I looked at the system today, I wouldn't recognize it.
You never know. Some stuff doesn't evolve much.
Hey, we got through another hydro test for good for another 7 years, right? Sorry to get too technical in the language here, but for those in the diving industry that know, they know. Yeah. Well, this is so you were now.
Yeah, no, I was an explosive advisor, and I was very disappointed how we left that country because I had a number of really good Vietnamese officers work for me. I was an enlisted guy. So I was offloading the ammunition ships, Saigon River and Queen Yuen. It was serious neighborhoods, and when we pulled out of there, it really hurt.
Yeah.
And then I watched what we did in Afghanistan. So anyways, Vietnam, I remember waking up in February. I had grown up in Boston.
Right.
And then ended up on the icebreaker, diving in 26-degree water temperature in the wetsuits.
Nothing like hypothermia.
No, 94-degree body temperature with the thermometers up our butt in 15-minute dives.
Wow.
So if we ever had to change the propeller blade, we'd probably pull it off, but it wouldn't have worked out for us at the end of the day.
But I think what I'm hearing here is what Resolve does today, and some of the things you guys pull off, comes from a lifetime of innovation and adaptation, right?
Well, without a doubt, I give the military, specifically the Coast Guard, for creating Resolve. If I hadn't had those experiences, and again, if I had gone into the SEALs or UDT, if I had made it, I don't know, and my buddy who did go in, and his brother was an instructor, he got really tripped up with Agent Orange in Mekong Delta, and his life was pretty well trashed.
Your life could have taken
so it's like you just said, some of the strange things that we do in life, and it was quite an experience. But all these things it led me up to learning a lot about all the diving, the explosives. I was a diesel engineer on the icebreaker as well.
Right.
So all these experiences really
even
tied
just
together.
Working at sea. It's one of my takeaways today that. My time offshore, we were offshore for quite a period of time.
Oh, yeah.
And so once you are on the ocean for extended periods of time and working in the environment, which changes daily, your takeaway is completely different. And there's a lot.
Your offshore, my offshore, bit different. You'd be underwater up to what, 30 days?
We go 30, 40 days, whenever the job finishes. And then 4 or 5 days to come back out of the chamber and decompression. So.
And you were doing what, 800,000 feet?
No, we weren't that deep. We were doing 4 feet. But still, once you're in saturation, it doesn't matter. It's a few more days to come out from the deeper, but you're still in the same situation.
So you're at sea in my eyes. What's different?
Yeah, if a storm was coming, your options were way more than we had. We'll go into that another day, but our option wasn't so pretty if we had to deal with a storm.
Seeing you doing podcasts now is quite a change.
I survived my youth too. No, this is fun. This all led into Resolve, and it's funny. I sit here, I look around, and I see things that you and I've talked about before in this beautiful room here at your home in Fort Lauderdale. I see some ship models, and I see cowling off of an aircraft, and I see a piece of bamboo, and I think we're going to touch on all that. But all of that, I think, ultimately talks about what you go through to achieve what you achieve, and what it really is to work in the ocean, and the grace that you get from God, the grace you get from the world you're in that leads you to be where you are today.
Yeah, well, you become very religious when you live on the edge, when you make it through. Mm-hmm. It took a lot of that in my life, till the mid-30s. I grew up as a Catholic, but when you have to be a something, you're not so much a good something.
Right.
When you've been really experiencing some unique over-the-line, a bridge too far, and you come out of it, I connected the dots, to be honest with you, about my mid-30s. And now I go to church 7 days a week.
Yeah.
The room is just filled with near misses and cool stuff.
Yeah, it is.
My whole life is that. And I came up with Resolve, and when I resolved what I wanted to do in life, So going back to the timelines, I woke up in Vietnam one morning in February, I remember it, and it was like, wait a minute, I just spent a couple of years diving on an icebreaker, grew up in New England, Boston, and I'm like, it's February, and it's Vietnam, and it's gorgeous. I mean, it literally is. I bet there's someplace else warm where people like each other.
Yeah.
So here's me in 2021, and I come back from Vietnam and came back to a Coast Guard station in Scituate, Mass. I had a few months to burn off. I was the engineering officer at the station. And I told the old man I wanted to go someplace warm, the guy that ran the base. And he says, hey, I got an older fellow that wants to take his sailboat to Florida. He doesn't really know how to run it. Why don't you take it down there? And he says, you know about sailing? I said, oh, of course. We went to the library, got a book that night, and met the guy the next day. And then 24 hours. And I met the guy, and because that would have been my apartment. So I ended up tying the boat to the Coast Guard station in Scituate, Mass. for about 2 weeks. And left the day I got out of the military in a snow squall, November 3rd, with him in the boat. He didn't know much about the boat, but he wanted it in Florida, and it could be my apartment. So that's how I get down here. It took 3 weeks. The main engine, the general, the mizzen, and the mainsail, and still took 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
Yeah.
Hey, but it was a good trip.
That was great, yeah.
A learning experience,
Yeah,
of course.
so it was. Came down here with $500, didn't know a soul, but I wasn't going to live up in New England. I figured it this way, I'd rather live under a bridge someplace warm than a house someplace cold.
Bingo. I've heard that before.
We were actually in one of the nicest homes you can find for a lot. Not to brag here, the position of the house is what the key is.
Yeah,
look out my window. Here's another big container.
For those who are at all curious, and it's worth the look in Google Maps. Joe happens to be right where the Intercoastal Waterway turning base and Port Everglades Inlet intersect. So he's got the corner lot, and he's got a bird's eye view to all the shipping that comes in and out of here, the cruise ships, all the recreational vehicles. This is entertainment. You don't need the big screen TV. You just have this right here. It's amazing.
It is, and they're all our clients. Yeah. We've got about 40% of the ships coming in the United States. All that was the emergency responder for all the cruise lines, Carnival, Royal Cruise.
Hard to imagine that when you show up in town with $500 in your back pocket on a sailboat you just learned to sail, and trying to figure out now what.
Well, then I was running out of dough. Been here about a week and a half. I hitchhiked up to Palm Beach to the Artec Weapons Range. They had a base at the airport. They still do to this day.
Yep.
As a matter of fact, Artec Weapons, it's Atlantic Undersea Test and Evaluation Center. I hitchhiked up there. 95, you could do that on 95, the highway. And that was in 1972. So when I hitchhiked up, and they says I had an advertisement from the Boston Globe. They were looking for ex-military divers.
Yeah.
So I walked in there, and I says, you looking for divers? And he says, yeah. What do you got? And I said, here's my diploma from the San Diego School. Here's my experiences and the licenses and the Coast Guard. And like, when can we hire you? He says, well, anytime. I says, you serious? Yeah. He says, right now. And says, I just got to give the guy notice. I'm going to tighten his boat up. How'd you get here? I hitchhiked. I said, what? He got a limousine, drove me down. So then 2.5 weeks, I'm jumping out of helicopters, recovering torpedoes in the mountain. Wow. That was a cool job.
That's a cool job.
Young man's sport. You come in 10 feet, 10 knots, torpedoes that were nuclear capable of nuclear warheads. Oh, super secret. So you didn't lose any of those. Of course you came in and you jumped out and you put straps around them.
Deep water down there. Too.
It's 6,000 feet, but we're working the surface. And all the target torpedoes. That was a good sport.
That's cool. I've been to Artec before. I had one of my dive supervisors that I was working with offshore that got a job there, and he brought me over there for a weekend and showed me around. It was pretty interesting. It's
really amazing, and all kinds of testing. Before a captain gets to the keys to a nuclear submarine, he has to go to war. Submarines chase him. He chases submarines. He chases surface vessels. Airplanes drop torpedoes on him. It's unbelievable. That's the whole... Yeah.
And they're collecting acoustic signatures and a lot of data.
It was amazing. So that was good for a few years.
Yeah. And then brought you. What was the genesis of Resolve? Was there a moment or a click or something that happened? That
I got involved with. I met some fellows in the Bahamas, and some crazy days in those days, but they knew my experiences, and I had already been now working there for 4 years. You jump out of a helicopter 6 in the morning, land on a shark, scare him as much as your own self, because the torpedoes had pingers. They would attract these animals.
Right.
So after 4 years of that, I was up for something. They said, look, we're going to pick up a tugboat in Europe, in an ex-Smith tug, the Tasman Z. One of the biggest in the world when it was built in 58. Would you want to become the chief engineer? And I said, Yeah, I think I'm due for a change. So I went over there, and geez, the whole engine room was in Dutch, and crawling every pipeline in a big salvage tug. And as a matter of fact, that's a copy of it right there. My son had that one made. He was almost born on it during the salvage.
It's a beautiful ship.
Yeah,
you guys can't see it, but I'll take a picture of it. Maybe we can post it up in this interview.
Yeah, it's 158 foot. You drew about 17, 18 foot draft. And that was me, the chief engineer. In a couple of years, they had just the one boat, and it wasn't working out that well. They wanted to sell it. They said, would you stay with it down in the Caribbean? I said, I will, but if I could use it, if I could find some work for it. And they says, yeah, the insurance will handle that. And you know the ship. So, geez, within 2 or 3 weeks, I had one job, and the second job come by, can I use the ship again? They says, yeah, it was thanks, you're paying us for the first one. I said, yeah, but I want to buy the ship from this job. And they agreed to it, so I got in the business back.
Your first ship then?
By using the ship to buy the ship when they wanted to get away from the
Isn't
ship.
that brilliant?
They wanted to sell it. I was like, this is a good deal. So I got in the business back. I didn't know a clue, but I had the biggest salvage tug in the Caribbean.
Wow.
And I knew how to run it.
Yes.
I didn't know anything about salvage, mind you, yet, but I was to come.
Wow.
And I came up with the name Resolve. And I resolved what I wanted to do. By that time, I was a pilot, an airplane pilot, a good engineer, diesel engineer. I was explosives, a guy good in diving. I could do anything. And I said, Resolve. I'll resolve what I want to do, and I named that ship the Resolve.
That's cool. We're back, and thanks, Joe. This is good stuff.
Then we had a commercial break here.
Yeah, we needed, but it's a good day for that for sure. So, what's occurred to me is, and I think we went down this path last time I was here. We could literally speak for hours, and I don't think we'd run out of things to talk about, and I wouldn't want to. It's a beautiful thing about a friendship, and when you find this common ground that we seem to share. But I do know from our previous conversations and from everything I've observed and learned over the period of time I've been getting ready for this conversation, that you, like I, strongly believe in doing well for others. There's a natural human instinct to give back, to do where you know you can do. And I've had a few instances in my life where I've had that opportunity and I've stepped up and I've never regretted it. I'd love to hear more about yours, because Resolve Marine is doing very well and has earned that success, no question in my mind. But you also have been quick to take your resources and bring them to bear, sometimes invited, sometimes uninvited, to do well. And I'd like to hear some of this. Right now, there's a big conversation going on about protecting right whales in the Atlantic seaboard. There's legislation pending, I don't even know if it's completely done yet, about setting speed limits for ships and vessels at sea to try to break. There's two sides of that. There's a lot of people pushing back against that because of the restrictions and what that looks like. But there's the other side of it saying you can't bring this species back once it's gone. And there is a certain, I think, obligation we have as a human species to protect our resources. And chime in on this. Where do you stand in this conversation?
Yes,
what's your thoughts?
It's a sad situation. My daughter, Summer, who works for Teledyne, and she was working with the ropeless system for the right whales, and she said, Dad, and she's married Danik, who now runs the Alvin submarine. He's been running for 8 years, so they met on a ship and named an asteroid after him. He found an asteroid on the ocean floor, named it after my grandson.
That's a blessing.
Isn't it weird? I saw the meteorite go by.
And
anyway,
it's where to find it.
Yeah, oh yeah. Landed right on top of it, 1,000 meters up. And it's called Finn's Rock now. So she was telling me, she says, Dad, there's 370 odd right whales left. I said, what are you talking about? A right whale. That was the right whale to kill, because that's why it's called the right whale. It's the best
blubber and oil and all that.
Everything for our Declaration of Independence were written on the candle waxes from the whale oil. The whole world ran on oil from the whales. The London streets and Nantucket, the world was all lit up by whale oil. And she's 370. So are you kidding? She says, yeah, and 60-something are females. I'm like, really? This is tragic. Oh, the North Atlantic right whales. Now there is a Pacific right whale, okay?
Okay.
Maybe we get them some Uber tickets up here.
There you go.
But it's really, a lot of them, like you're saying, there are strikes by vessels that are hitting them. And if you invoke these speeds, you'll put a lot of people out of business. You got a sport fisherman, he needs to go out a couple hundred miles. He can't go at 10 knots and make a living.
No,
or whatever vessels they have to make their speeds. So it's a tough balance, but about 50% safe. It goes, I've heard it either way. 40% are killed by strikes from vessels, or 40% are killed by entanglements. 60% strikes or entanglements. So whatever, it's about a 50-50
So
apparently.
you got both the ghost nets issues and
the ghost nets, but also the lobster trap lines, and that's the one she was working on, trying to. And it's expensive stuff to get these. Local fishermen can't afford them. These releases, the buoy pops up when you're out over the net, so you over your lobster string of traps. Right. So the short story is I really became aware of it, and then I've kept a ship. I had a bunch of ships around the world, big rescue ships. I bought a couple of the big ones from the UK when they stopped the emergency response vessels. I got the two biggest ones I had. So I'd keep them in Singapore. I had one I'd keep in Cape Town for a while, Gibraltar. I keep actually still two in Alaska now, smaller ones. I have a 210-foot. I rescue the deadliest catch up there.
So you're up there in Dutch Harbor area.
Dutch Harbor, yeah.
Wow.
We just did a rescue of a bunch of dogs up there and brought some vets out there. And some good friends of ours from Gomez just sponsored, gave us $20,000 to bring some veterinarians to some hospital to these little villages in Alaska. We keep a Pilatus up there for my team out in Dutch Harbor. And we've been, Craig's, the pilots rescued probably 100 dogs. But going, this last week, they were out there, the snow, this is April. The snow was so high that they had to get out of the plane so they could get in a taxiway and knock the snowbounds off the peaks of the 10-foot high so they could taxi the plane in to go into this empty village and had 20 people bring their 20 animals come out of nowhere, and they had them all neutered and spayed. It's really wonderful. So we do all that weird stuff everywhere you can imagine. But going back to the whale, so I've kept this one ship, and she's about a 220-foot, really nice North Sea vessel. I use it for some humanitarian runs, and I've kept it. I have a port in Alabama, 9-acre port, and one of my friends, Dennis Klosowski, I used to be running Tyco. He says, Joe, why don't we use that ship for the right whales? And I'm just looking because it's the most cost-effective vessel you could ever run. And I got rid of all my big stuff, but this one, you can land a Super Puma helicopter on it. You can handle a 12-ton takeoff weight. So I've just kept it in a warm layup till COVID hit. Then I had my Ukrainian crew. They had to leave with COVID. And so now we're looking to get this thing up there and just stay. So we're talking to NOAA. We want to get on board because we're not whale experts by no stretch. We want to get these people that really are. Here's a resource. How can we help you? What do we need to do? You only know where the whales are at about 20% of the time. You don't know when they're entangled 200 miles offshore, or where there's a part of maybe 30 or 40 of them, and the ship traffic doesn't know they're there. Why can't we not leave this ship with them year-round? Because it's a North Sea trawler. We can even bring the dead whale up and onto if it's not too old, you can bring them on board and do what the autopsy.
The necropsy.
Necropsy, yeah. Find out what's going on. And so we're raising, it looks like about $10 million over the next 3 years for that.
Bravo.
It's it's really wild because the ship is good. But there's some wonderful people doing all kinds of stuff with what they call the snot box, where they'll drive the drone over there, and as the whales are exhaling, they can tell the type of whale, the DNA from it, if it's pregnant or not. And I'm like, okay, these are the guys. Now we got to get them to be able to cut the lines loose with drones. You can't risk people. If you're on the North Atlantic and it's February and you got a whale entangled, you're not going to launch a small boat. You need to be able to get on that thing with a drone, maybe an AUV. I'm just not sure how this will all work. Some way that it won't cut the whale. The old days, you get a cast on your arm when you broke an arm. You could cut that cast right off.
With the blade it won't even cut
your skin.
Right.
So I'm sure we can develop that. But I want the experts to do it. We want to just provide them that resource as the ship.
There you go.
And with scientists, because you can handle another 30 people on the ship besides its own crew.
Right. Which is a reminder, because I don't want to miss this opportunity. You just mentioned that. So you and I, in previous conversation, I'm very close with the International Seakeepers Society.
Oh, yeah.
And they're an amazing organization that also does well for others. And one of their initiatives is what they call discovery vessels. And they reach out to yacht owners and vessel owners and say, hey, listen, we've got scientists that want to go to location XYZ. If you've got your boat that's going to be in that area, can you accommodate our scientists on board? Can you help them achieve this particular experiment or this research, whatever they're doing, for whether it's a couple days, a couple weeks, whatever the resource allows. And it's amazing as much as you hear people maligning, well, high net worth individuals, yacht owners, that people have these vessels, how many of these individuals are more than happy to accommodate the opportunity to bring on professional experts, scientists, researchers, people that can do this? And what you've just basically said is you've got a vessel up in the Northeast.
It's right now in Theodore, Alabama, is where we keep our port. But it should be out of the Northeast. But you can sail to sea for months.
You accommodate quite a few people on board.
Yeah.
You could support
that.
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's who's supporting this. It's the philanthropic-minded, well-heeled people financially. Right. And you hear that, these rich people. Baloney. I live in Broward County. We have more people down here, from the Bergerons to the Case families. I could go on and on. Homelessness. They give so much of their time and money, not just their money, their time to help the people.
Yeah.
There's huge things, but I love the Seakeepers, Michael Moore, Julian Chang out of Singapore. They're incredible
people.
They
wonderful people?
They just want to help, and they know the oceans, and they feel like I feel. We need to give back.
Yeah.
If we don't, who does?
Yeah. I've had them on board my boat the last 2 years. We're going again from Bimini to Palm Beach, again to do well for others. Team Seakeeper Society, we're going to be part of the Crossing for a Cure, the Piper's Angels Foundation for Cystic Fibrosis.
Nice.
It's a paddleboard. We're escorting paddleboards, and Jay Wade and Dick Seidenspinner are paddling 84 miles from Bimini Sands across the Gulf Stream to Lake Worth Pier.
That's a hike.
That's a hike.
I have a house or two over in South Bimini. I know the neighborhood.
And it's got tons of no-see-ums there. But it's an amazing thing, again, doing well for others, giving your resources, time, and effort to do something that benefits. And you brought up Seakeepers. I couldn't miss the opportunity to come to the conversation.
They're great, and they do. So lovely aircraft are available.
Yeah.
I just watched one go by a little while ago. Wingman, for the people who might know who owns it. We won't get into who's who. Right. I just watched it go by.
That's fun,
those are really nice people that run those boats. They're regular people. They may not think so, but they're the real ownership of some of these really into doing things. We're working for Gaza right now, helping with the World Food guys over there.
You mentioned that.
Yeah,
and that's a little bit of a hot.
There's another guy here. He's put a lot of dough into it, the Bezos, to help those people out.
He brought his boat into town here not too long ago. Yeah. That took a little bit of heat as well. One of the things that stuck in my memory after our last conversation, Haiti. There was a horrible earthquake in Haiti a number of years ago. I forget exactly which year it was. You probably have a better memory than I, because you actually went there. And I thought the way you did it and the circumstances you did it under is profound and I think it's a perfect reflection on the culture of Mission Resolve. Tell the story.
Well, to me, everything I have has been a gift to me. People say, "Oh, you earned it. You work hard." This is just where I go to church 7 days a week now, and I wasn't always that way. But I started realizing how fragile things can be and how certain simple operations go to heck. So I was always using Resolve Marine as a piggy bank. If I had 4 or 5 payrolls together, that's every 2 weeks is a payroll, then I could use other money. I felt I was successful, but I had a lot of families, a couple hundred families at the time that depended on us.
That's
now
real.
I think we're 400, and we need about $1 million every 2 weeks now as our payroll. But if I had enough payrolls, then I would somebody had a need. So then one day my son says, who's got his degree from Mass Maritime as a third assistant engineer. Then he got a Naval Arc degree, an ocean engineering degree.
Oh, he did the ocean engineering degree at Florida Institute of Technology.
That's a fact. Yeah.
After I graduated there with my underwater technology degree, we're alumni.
Isn't that wild?
Isn't that crazy? Small world. You can't make this stuff up.
And Gary Zarella, he's still there. He's helped me with the erosion project. Why I have St. Mary on the tail of my airplane for my erosion project. Why I'm still probably here. Drove the jet through trees a few years ago.
Yeah, there you go.
With 2 good pilots, I wouldn't even drive it, so I get in trouble in the back of a plane. So then one day Joey says, "Dad, you know how much money we made this year?" He says, "Yeah." It was a board meeting. And then he says, "Oh, yeah. Do you know how much you gave away this year?" And I says, "Well, yeah. And then I'm going to move on, and then there was dead silence in the room. I said, "Oh, it's a setup." Now, Joey by this time, he's also got an MBA from Cornell in finance from Cornell, right?
So, yeah,
I'm
he knows something about
so I
the
can no
balance
longer
sheet.
use Resolve piggy bank. So he says, I said, "All right, how much did I give away?" He says, "You gave away the same amount you gave away last year." I says, "Yeah." He says, "Yeah, more than our net." I says, Well, what do you think credit lines are for, Joey? So I started our profit.
Well, I was going to say, does this mean you turn it into a 501c and become a nonprofit?
I have to. But I realized that if we can get this right, and other people have seen what I'm doing, and really the truth of how I'm doing and why, that I've got people are now coming out and saying, look, let's help you. Like the one with the Lana Rose is the ship that we want to get out there with the right wells, and a number of other projects. We want to get with Mary Crowley. We want to try to pick about 3 or 4.
She's doing the ghost net stuff,
Yes,
right? Yeah, amazing story there.
Oh, she's amazing. And we want to do is about 300 or 400 tons of ghost nets with her. We're using one of my ships this year from Dutch Harbor. We're trying to raise the money for her. She's already gotten about 800 tons of ghost nets out of the ocean. And these things
That's real.
Miles of nets just drifting around, killing and catching things.
Right.
Whales and everybody.
They don't
hit the bottom until about 15 years when they get enough growth on them.
Right.
It's really tragic. And there's some good people out there. What's his name? Julian, the Dutch youngster, and doing good stuff out there, but there's such a mess out there. Such a mess.
But I'm going to take you back to Haiti, though, because, again, I think that's a story that needs to be told. There was a horrible earthquake, and hundreds of thousands of people perished. Oof. It was devastating.
Yeah, no, it was not good. And I've done a lot of, I started cutting my teeth in salvage in the Caribbean. So I've been to all these islands and countries, and I just know Haiti's always been dirt poor. The politics of that place is just terrible. Anyway, so I'm in the Bahamas, my wife, the earthquake hits, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a real disaster. And start seeing some of the Don buildings. And so I called my guy, Farrell Imam. He was my COO. He's from India. He was a Muslim guy, really wonderful man. And I said, look, we had a tug and barge on the east coast of Florida here, and we're picking up an anchor. The ship lost its anchorage offshore, and we were paid, coming all the way from Alabama with a barge and our 210-foot tug to find it and pick the anchor up. And we were paid so that if you lose an anchor in an anchorage, the next ship that comes in and he hooks it up, he's going to lose his anchor. Some of these ships, if they lose anchors, the class won't even let them go sail unless you got a replacement anchor.
That's real.
Specifically the cruise ships. I've had them where we can't go to Alaska, Joe, unless we have 2 anchors. You got to go get our anchor off Jamaica. I'm like, okay, I think it was 1,000 feet. Oh, that should be easy. So anyways, so I said, where's the tug and barge? She said, well, we not only found the 1 anchor, but we found 3 anchors. I says, okay, well, where is the rig now? She says, it's just passing Key West heading back to Alabama. I says, okay, send it back to me around Fort Lauderdale. I says, we're going to take it in here and we're going to load up and go to Haiti. He says, we have a contract for that. I says, no. He says, well, what do you have in mind? I said, I want to get all of our underwater cutting gear. I want to give me about 8 of our best divers, and I'm going to get a bunch of empty containers. We're going to load them up with food. We're going to load them up with medicine. We got food from the poor, a group over here, and medicines for Doctors Without Borders. Yeah. And I bought half a dozen water makers. And Farrell says, but we don't have a contract. We don't have any money. I said, well, of course we have money, Farrell. What's the matter with you? He said, we don't have the money, Joe. I says, Farrell, we have $400,000 to fix the propellers on those 210-foot ship, the Resolve Pioneer, is Rolls-Royce propellers. They're variable pitch. We got $400,000 to pop the boat out of water, do the propellers. Maybe we didn't get no money.
Just need to reallocate it.
True story. And he's a wonderful man. We came in. The port was really grateful port, gracious to us, rather. Didn't charge us anything. We loaded up. I fly down there, and I'm living in an automobile, and because all the buildings are wrecked now. So I meet the Mevs family that own the port of a room just north of Port-au-Prince. They had lost everything. One dock collapsed. He lost 40 of his men. They were bagging sugar. All his best guys. They were just in trouble. All the docks, the pilings were severed underneath. So I moved a number of wrecks around there, pulled a crane apart. They had a big crane in the air, and their dock collapsed. And they said, Mr. Mevs says, just cut it up, get it out of there. I said, no, we're going to need to take that. I said, you can't take that apart up in there. My guys did. We took about 120 foot of stick out of that thing, blowing about 30 knots with another crane and pulling the pins out and put it over there. And they're all telling me always, cut it up, Joe, it's too dangerous. And I says, guys, you guys okay with this, my guys? And they says, yeah, we got this, Joe. So we put it, and then 3 weeks later, it went back together working for the U.S. government. So now I'm about, and then Mr. Mev comes up to me. I'm there about 6 days. I was there about 8 days. Went through $400,000 in 8 days. That's expensive business we're in.
Yeah.
And I put some anchors out, set them at 40 tons each, so you can put an oil tanker in there, because again, you can't tie it to the docks.
Right.
And made a channel, removed wrecks, made a landing beach of about 400 feet long. That went from 20 foot of water depth to about 5 foot out. Use all the rubble from the big customs building. It's some of the best rubble. And when you saw the steel construction, the French rebar was smooth rebar, so there was no
Nothing to
bridges
grip,
on
nothing
it.
to hold on to.
So when you have an earthquake, it just slides right off. I'm like, that's not smart.
No.
So anyways, so now I'm about wrapping it up, tidying things up, and going to figure out where to make some money next. We'll come up and find the money to repair the ship. And a Jeep comes in with a 60 caliber machine gun guys on that, and the next Jeep with the Admiral in it, and the next Jeep with a machine gun. Guy jumps out of the Jeep and says, "Who are you?" I says, "All due respect, who are you?" He said, "Well, I'm Sam Perez, and what are you doing here, and who are you?" I said, "Well, I just came in to help these people out." He says, "Well, I'm in charge of this country for the Americas and for America and the United Nations." And he ends up, I said, "Well, here's a port you can use." He says, "What do you mean?" I says, "It's ready." So you got to put a tanker out there. I says, "You got a landing beach here?" And he says, "No way." I says, "Yeah, no way." He says, "Well, I need to go to Port-au-Prince right now. Take the big crane down. If you remember, there's the big crane hanging in the harbor in there.
Yep.
And they kept with all the after trimmers. It was blocking about at least a third of the port.
Wow.
So the old man, so the admiral says, "Sam Perez." As a matter of fact, he ended up running the aircraft carrier that took Bin Laden's body when the Navy SEALs killed it.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, off of the Middle East over there. I was writing him a text. I figured I better not hit the send because he'd probably tell me what else he put in that bag. But that other sack of shit, you know. Anyways, so we ended up, and he said, "Well," I said, "I can't. I ran out of dough." He says, "What do you mean you ran out of money?" I says, "I ran out of money, sir." He says, "You did this on your own expense?" I says, "Yeah, these people don't have anything." And the irony was the day before the admiral came in, the old man came, Mr. Mez comes up, says, "Mr. Farrell, I'm not," in this broken English, he says, "I'm not a homosexual, but you are a lovely man." I said, "Okay, this is strange." He says, "No," he says, "We lost everything. My dock collapsed. I lost everything in my team. We lost our whole heart. But you came in out of nowhere. We can't pay." He says, how do we repay you?" I said, "You know what you do? When they bring your people back to work, just pay them 15 to 20% more than you have to. Just pay them more than you have to." The following day comes the Jeeps and the Admiral, renting the whole place from them.
Doing well for others, Joe.
Oh, yeah. And then the Admiral says, "I need you to take the crane." I says, "I can't afford that. I just don't have any money." And after he got it, he said, "You're going to Port-au-Prince and you're going to make some good money." And I think we ended up making about $2 million, a lot of which we gave back to them over there.
You can't make this stuff up. And this is so much of the message I try to communicate in what we talk about is that you get what you give. And
Are you kidding? Oh, you get it in spades.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
get so much more by giving. And that wasn't not my intent. And it's there, though.
sometimes in life it takes time to get to that point where you realize that's real.
Yeah.
You know, that it really is. And that story resonated with me when you told it to me last time we were here. There was a very unfortunate situation in Sri Lanka in Colombo where they had terrorists come in and blow up a church and over 300 people were killed.
Ooh.
And you had something to do with its restoration as well, as I understand. And that's like on the other side of the world.
It's funny, last night we had a little get-together for the Archbishop from Miami was here, Archbishop Wensk. And matter of fact, if you see the flags on my yacht arm out there, I say, "Welcome, Archbishop Wensk from Miami."
Oh, wow.
It was a neat little event.
Yeah.
And I said, "By the way, you know where the argument went from the St. Anthony's Church up here?" He says, "No." I said, "Did you heard about that church, St. Anthony's, that was blown up in Sri Lanka?"
A little common ground.
And he says, "Yeah, I've heard about it." I says, "Well, that's where your argument is." He said, "No." I told him the story.
That's a beautiful story. It really is.
It was. We do a lot in strange countries, not strange, but different countries. Right now, we've got about 10 projects going on around the world. We're doing the ship in Baltimore to just knock the bridge down. We've got a big one in Cape Town. Nick Sloan's running that one, cutting a vessel up in really rough conditions using a helicopter, and then we're going to blow the hull apart.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
So you're basically going in there with oxyacetylene torches, cutting a chunk of steel,
topside,
figuring out what that steel weighs, calling in the bird and saying, "Here, pick this up and take this away."
Oh, yeah, in the 20-foot seas hitting the wreck all the time. I mean, you wouldn't believe these guys.
So I have to question.
I don't know how torches stay lit.
Coming from the commercial diving industry, as I have, and being in the maritime industry my entire life, how many people have you lost over this period of time doing what you do?
True. Zero.
Zero.
Not a man or a woman. I have some really wild, hard-hat women divers, too. They're incredible. They're incredible. Matter of fact, I won't disparage my guys, but when I have a really in the past, when I have a strange situation, where's Eve there? Let's get her over. Get her over. Let's fly her in here. And, strange ones. And find a certain.
No, they have to be.
Yeah,
I've known some pretty badass.
I've never lost one. I mean,
dancers.
we've had a bunch. I mean, I've been trapped in engine rooms. I've been on ships that have been fire. I've been in
People can get
run out
hurt.
of here.
There's
I've
no
been
way
lost
around
at sea.
that.
Our tug sunk. And my guys have gone through, many of these guys, through various situations. We've never lost a man or a woman.
That's
It's
amazing.
it's not impossible in this level.
No,
Well, it's always has, but I don't want to push my luck by saying it, but it's true.
I would dare say that I think there's a little bit of a blessing that
A little. You have no idea. You
Actually, I
do.
do.
You do, or you wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
Seriously. So anyways, going back to Sri Lanka, we cleaned up after the Tamil Tiger War. I've got an office in Mumbai, India. I got offices on every continent of the world. So and down in Mumbai, the Indian Navy asked us if we would help them clean up after the Tamil Tiger War in a country just south of them called Sri Lanka.
Right.
And there was a lot of the Tamils out of India. There was a lot of politics and cross-pollination and who caused what and who was feeding the monsters. And it was a terrible, vicious 30-year war. They'd have a truce. Okay, we're going to finally have a truce, and then all the two sides would come together, have a celebration, and one side would just take over and just kill everybody. And so that was 30-year war.
Yeah.
So we come in right at the end of the war to clean up 10 vessels that were blown up. I had more protection there than I had in Vietnam. I swear to God, I had an ammunition ship. They covered our asses, and it was at the end of the war. The war wrapped up, but and I got to know some really good guys. So we had to remove 10 wrecks. I think two I did for free because they were blown up by terrorists in the Navy. It wasn't in the budget to remove, but the Navy, the memorials to the Sri Lankan Navy guys, and so they're not huge boats like PT-109 size. So I picked down things up, and they made memorials out of them in Sri Lanka for the guys that were killed. And it was the right thing to do because we were making good money as well. It was risky. I mean, we were dropping 15-ton guillotines, and you got a lot on explosive ordnances. So you're out riding on a lot of luck or divine intervention. But so I got to know everybody. So about 4 years ago now, Easter Sunday, there's an explosion. I'm watching Fox News, and the church is blown up in Colombo, Sri Lanka, Catholic church, Muslim extremists. And I'm like, geez whiz. So it was Sunday before I went to church. I said, Envy, I got to make some calls here to find out what's going on in Sri Lanka. So I called my friend now, who was at the time a commando. He was a commando of their Navy SEALs. A commander, now he's an admiral. I said, Admiral, what you got? He says, Joe, you're not going to believe it. He says, the church was loaded, 8:45. Kids,
it was
children,
Easter, wasn't
it? Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
Children all dressed up with all their beautiful clothes and their families. And he says, I'm in the church now. I said, what do you mean you're in the church? He says, we had a ship that was suspected smuggling. We were going to do a raid on the ship. I was in my office. 2 explosions went off, one in the hotel beside my office. I ran over there, and then the church blew up at the same time, and I ran down the block, and I'm in the church now. And he sent me some pictures, gory pictures. I mean, just the bodies and all that. He said, we just finished taking all the dead children out. Now we're taking the dead adults out. I says, okay, listen, let me get back to you. You tell me what it's going to take to rebuild the church. And he says, okay. I says, how's the Monsignor, the guy running the church? He says, he's a nervous wreck. I think he's going to have a breakdown, Joe. He's beside me now. Because the church was loaded for a 9 o'clock mass, 8:45. Yeah. And these are precious people. These people, just the leadership in some of these countries sometimes takes them a fall. But these people are wonderful. And I said, look, I'll call you back in 48 hours. Tell me what it's going to take to rebuild the church. I call him back. He says, Joe, we figure $115,000 if we don't do anything with the parking lot outside. I said, well, I can't help with that much, but I says, I can do $60,000. I says, I'll get my CFO, I'll shake him down for $60,000. And he says, if you can do that, he says, I'll use the Sri Lankan Navy, and we'll do it. I said, seriously. Wow. 40 days later, Rick, he's sending me back 40 days, 40 nights. Yeah. A little biblical.
Yeah, a little bit.
He's a Buddhist.
Not a Christian.
He had 100 Navy people, men and women, working around the clock. And our 60 must have become more with other people's money. Sends me pictures of the most beautiful church, full of people. He says, Joe, there's even more people coming to church now before. So then in the middle of all that, we get that done, and this hurricanes hit here. My local, Father Grady, and Andy, the head of the Grand Night at the Knights Club, says, Joe, the Father's got this organ for St. Anthony's, and when you find a home for it. I said, what's the matter with it? Nothing. We're just going to have a new organ, and some parishioners insisted we buy this organ. What's the value of this organ? Hundreds of thousands, they tell me. I said, what? And what's wrong with the other one? Nothing. I'm like, okay, shit. So I'm trying to figure out where to go. And then after 2 weeks, it's in my warehouse. I'm like, wait a minute. The church that was blown up in Sri Lanka was called St. Anthony's. The church that has an extra organ is St. Anthony's. I call Admiral Pilar. Admiral, you guys have organs in Sri Lanka, and it's broken English. He's known me now 15 years. Right. He says, Joe, I think we invented organs. So the next time a terrorist is going to blow up the church, it ain't going to be a Catholic church in Sri Lanka because they end up with a better church. More people come to church and they even get to have an organ.
Wow.
So the church has the organ from here.
That is absolutely turning a tragedy into. And you know what? You can't make this stuff up. I love it. It's. I think it's why we sometimes find these blessings and do what we do.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
if
for
we
sure.
don't, it's on us because dead's a lot longer than alive. You want to make sure you go on the right side of dead. Doing it as best you can. And I think you get an extra 10 minutes down here if you keep doing good stuff.
Bravo. Let's stack them up. We're both in Fort Lauderdale, yachting capital of the world, by the way. And you and I are both avid boaters. I love being on the ocean, as you know that. And I'm raising children like you have. My youngest son is an avid diver. He's my best dive buddy. He spent the summer at Marine Laboratory this past summer learning about coral restoration and doing coral restoration, both onshore in the labs where they're growing the corals and then going out and hanging them on the coral trees and cleaning them and all that. Wonderful. I know that's something that you get involved in. I've taken people from Nova Southeast University's facility right across the waterway from you out there doing mitigation surveys on the dredging projects that have happened here and helping the grad students build their theses and learn about the ocean. So the ocean's important. And let's just talk locally. Let's talk about what Resolve Maritime Marine, what Mission Resolve does, and your vision about how we take care of the oceans we're on right here, and what are we doing, and what can we do individually, locally, wherever we are listening to this podcast, that moves that needle a little bit, helps a little bit.
Yeah. Well, just respect where you're at in the environment. Just I don't even throw over a toothpick over the side anymore. I got to that point. In the old days, you could go out there 12 miles, dump your bilges, and 50 miles, throw your garbage over the side, and now it's all gone away, thank God.
Good.
And it's funny you talk about coral. We're the guys that showed everybody how to first break the coral and make them grow fast.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. I had a ship aground up here called the Farrell. It was from Turkey. It was loaded with pipe, and I was on the beach here. And I went to the state, because every time they have a remediation project, they wouldn't do it. They would just drop boulders and make something on a reef site for fish habitat or whatever, but they would never do anything with the coral. So I went to the state and they said, look, I like to take the broken coral. I'm doing the oil now. I'm taking the oil off the ship, and it's challenging. I had to take a lot of cargo pipes off it. But at the same time, I'm looking at all the broken coral. She went all across the reefs right here at Fort Lauderdale. Yeah. And I'm looking at all this coral. I'm like, wow, what a disaster. How does this coral grow? I don't have roots. How does it grow? Oh, it just grows on top of itself and then expands and expands. I'm like, all right. So I go to the state. I'd like to take this coral and take it to a lab and then put it back offshore. And they said, well, we'll get back with you. So in the meantime, talk to the University of Miami. Can I use some of your tanks? And we want to grow the coral and see how we can replant it where it's been decimated. Now, it's a huge ship, 600-foot ship. Yeah. There's a lot of coral destroyed. It's flat as a pancake, but there's a lot just broken as it's pushing its way in.
Very much alive as long as it's got water.
Yeah, it says, we've got some extra tanks. So I think the guy's name was Tom Capo from the University of Miami. So I deal with him with that, and the state says, we're going to let you do it. And I said, but I'm going to want to put them back out there if we can figure out how to make these things grow the way we're thinking, because no one's been really doing this. This is 20-something years ago, probably. Yeah. And I says, okay, but you cannot commingle it with any other corals from Miami. In the water in my University of Miami's tanks has to be dropped into deep wells so it's not going into government cut, so not contaminated, because they don't want to move any coral from any specific region, even 10 miles away, 20 miles. They just want that coral that came from that right to there and not commingle to cause any kind of problems. Contamination. Which has been crazy, the amount of stuff that's been going on here in the past. Yeah. We don't know why. Not man-made. Well, it's man-made probably with fertilizers or discharges or whatever. But anyways, so we were the guys who broke the corals. So Tommy calls me, so you got to come down the left. You brought me all these corals. They're growing so fast. He says, I want to stop breaking them every 4 to 6 weeks. and then I want to break them again. We got coral that started growing so much faster. Every time we broke it, it became like a racehorse.
Wow.
And we got, and then now the state comes back and says, okay, I want to put them back up. Well, now you're going to have to get yourself a PhD. I had to get a...
They don't make it easy, do they?
No, I know. I guess you got to make sure. You can't be dibbling down. Even with the wells, I don't want to mess around. We're going to get the right people to do the right thing. So I had a good guy, Mike, Jamaican guy. What the heck's his last name? It was his PhD from coral. So we got him up. Sure, they're growing like crazy. Staghorn coral. I get staghorn coral to grow 13 inches in 12 months.
Wow.
And that's an endangered coral.
Yeah, no, it is.
So that's how we started with that. But anything you're doing in the ocean right now, we've sunk more ships than anyone, I believe, in the world for artificial reefs.
Right.
It's easy to sink them. It's real hard to clean them. One of the jobs we sank, the largest one, with an aircraft carrier.
The Oriskany.
Yeah, the
and
Oriskany.
I've dove her.
Yeah,
yes,
and
she's amazing.
Be careful, you guys going in. I don't get you techie divers. I swear I don't. Even
like
us
it.
Navy divers, a hard head diver. You got one guy going to go inside, another guy's going to tend him before he goes inside. I'm that old school. Maybe that's why I haven't lost anybody.
There you go. No.
And my kids are even better.
She's a great wreck site.
Oh, it's unbelievable,
And the marine life that's on her
phenomenal.
is spectacular.
And it was a big job. They paid us about $20 million to clean that. We even had to take, the flight deck was wood, but the glue wood in the flight deck had PCBs, and we even had to gut that out. It was a beautiful, wonderful job.
Wow.
But I love the artificial reefs. Matter of fact, I'm doing one or more over in Bimini now at my own expense. I'm going to do it probably in May with the government. I want to get all in South Bimini. Actually, it's in North Bimini. The dock's been blocked for probably 10 years. A small vessel. So I just brought the bags over myself on one of my boats. So I want to get all the school kids on North Bimini. And there's a wonderful, Eve is a new administrator, and she was a school teacher. I said, come on, let's get the kids involved, because we're all going to go.
Yeah.
It's the young ones that need to know what and how to do things. So she's going to get them all involved from both the high school and the middle school in Bimini. And I've sunk 8 vessels off of Bimini at my own expense, and it's one of the best diving places on the planet.
So remind me at the end of this conversation to get some numbers from you.
Oh, yeah, they're beautiful. I sunk 4 in one day, right off front there, right outside the Catholic Church. A beautiful dive. You can swim from each one to each one.
Perfect.
Loaded with fish.
Love it.
Yeah.
So I think the takeaway here is that while you can look at a company like Resolve Marine and Mission Resolve, and you can look at a lot of other companies that are doing great things, individually, we all can do some really amazing things.
Oh, yes.
You just have to have the thought and process to decide that it's worth it, and that there's value in figuring out how to give back and doing the right thing.
Yeah, and it's wonderful. I love doing it because when I see, after during the Sri Lanka, the Tamil Tiger War, at the end of it, I helped with an orphanage right there. So I was in my offices in Singapore, and then we had a warehouse and a big operation there. And it was that side of the world. I had to shoot to Shanghai, I got a big facility. I do oil spills in China. China's another story unto itself.
I'm sure.
I don't want to go there, but we're still there.
You don't want to go there, but you're there. So.
We're there for the oil spill because, again, it's the environmental crap. And it ain't about the people. It's just these governments that just can't have us in totalitarian,
yes.
And in communist countries, governments can't have free governments on the same planet. They know, we just don't get it. Well, and they got a 40, 50-year plan, and they're working quite nicely from TikTok and everything else.
Everybody's paying attention.
Oh, no. And so anyways, I do it because it's an environmental oil spill. I won't do salvage there. But so I said, you know what, I'm over in this neck of the woods, and I'd been in Sri Lanka maybe a dozen years earlier, since the war. The end of the war, and I did an orphanage there, and they named it after one of my girls who passed away, a younger girl, Jennifer Rightfully. And I got a picture of her, and built a big classroom, and then I built dormitories up above. So I go over there, I called he was still a commander at the time. Commander, I'm thinking of shooting over to Sri Lanka. I'm over here in Asia at the moment. He said, oh yeah, you got to come to Sri Lanka, of course. Okay, I get over there. There's a friggin' motorcade for me. He's got all the brass, and the admiral who was in charge, he shows up there. But they take me to escort to the St. Joseph's. They like to call it a hostel. After the war, it was like Tweety birds and kids were left.
Right.
So there was a hostel where the kids are not in an orphanage. And they're all outside, and as I drive up, they start singing, and it was God Bless America.
Wow.
I'm blown away. And then Father Joseph who the Tamils and the government, neither one trusted him. I still can't believe they didn't kill him because neither side trusted him. And he had come from Canada to go back to the war because he just wanted to stay with his flock. Catholic priest, he was a Sri Lankan to begin with, but he goes back in the middle of the war, and we build this stuff for them with the admiral and the commander at the time, and he says, let me show you this building and that building. I said, where did all this stuff come from? He says, Joe, when you came in and started to help us, people came from everywhere to help. And that's the best thing. When we do something, Rick, so many other people are watching you. You don't know it. You are making an exponential difference.
Joe, there it is.
It's unbelievable. And that's really what helps me drive me because the other day, Kim Klosowski, she's up so excited about what they did with the vets in Alaska.
In Alaska, right.
And I'm telling them, they're outside the plane. It's minus 20. Blowing, pushing the snow away so the wings could clear to get to
Can't make this up.
And she's so excited. She says, "What you do? There's so many other people who are going to come out of the woodwork doing it."
There you go.
Yeah.
And you know what? That is a amazing takeaway.
Well,
it really is. Yeah. That is the value.
So you don't have to be. You have to be. I should have stayed in high school. Well, I graduated high school. I just never showed up.
Joe, I'd like to toast your full catastrophe living. I think you have really set the bar in an amazing way.
It's divine here, I'm telling you. And
I would never dispute that with you.
I'm so blessed. Oh, I am.
You are a blessed man, and I feel privileged to have this conversation. Promise we can come back and circle back around and talk
anytime,
again. Yeah. And there's more stories to be told, particularly when we're going to talk about Resolve Marine and some of the experiences you and Chauncey and others have had. Mm-hmm. We haven't even touched on the bamboo, but we'll have to come back to that. That'll be
we have a few bamboo stories.
Yeah, well, there's one particular that is just mind-blowing.
Cool.
So, Joe, I appreciate your time today, and I will look forward to spending a little bit of time this evening with you at the Coast Guard dinner.
Yeah.
It'll be nice.
Awesome.
And until we have an opportunity to reconvene, this is Rick Thomas with Yachting International Radio's Yachting USA podcast. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to the next time we can get together. And until then, be well, and I'm out of here.
All right, smooth sailing. I'm serious. God bless.
Again, thank you, Joe. This is great. This is great.